Sup guys, I'm Kel, Red Zone Rogue, and welcome to another Force of Will strategy video. Keep in mind that this is not a deck tech, but is instead a strategy video with the intent of providing information so you can go out and make your own dank builds. But if you don't care about that, there is a deck list in the description down below. So today's video will be my very first Wanderer strategy video, which is pretty exciting because I love Wanderer, I love Eternal formats in card games, and this is no exception. So for my very first Wanderer video, I figured I would do Tribal Elves. This is an aggro swarm style strategy. It's pretty simple. There's a lot of Resonators, and it's actually one of the decks that I use to help teach people how to play Force of Will. It, in fact, is the deck that I used to teach my brother how to play Force of Will. The deck does kind of lean on the more casual side, but it is very fast, kind of explosive, and is really fun to play. So without further ado, let's get on with the build. So the ruler of the deck is Fiethsing, 6th Sage of Wind. It's a pretty obvious choice. She's probably the best ruler for elves because she herself is an elf, but that's not incredibly relevant. What is relevant is she has Energize, which is awesome. Her judgment cost is 3 and 2 wind. Not very good, but it's basically, it's worth the effort. And it says whenever you play your second card each turn, you get a 100/100 elf wind resonator token, and that's really, really good for this deck. Those tokens will be a lot bigger than 100/100 when you attack with them. So let's check out her other side. So this is her GA ruler side. You basically only J activate her when you're trying to go in for a kill. Maybe late game if things stall out, but if that happens, then you're probably in pretty bad shape. What she does is other elves you control get plus 400/400, and that's one of the reasons why every single resonator in the deck is an elf. I know I'm not playing with the cats, and I'm not playing with the glibers. You can totally do that if you want to be a little more competitive. This is a theme deck, and we are going all elves, man. All elves, all day long. Also, whenever you play your second card each turn, you get to put 2 tokens on the field instead of 1. So that's also pretty good. Yeah, there's not much else to say. Fiethsing is awesome. She's also super dead, but let's not talk about that here. Let's get on to the Resonators. So for our mana dorks, we have Sacred Elf, Elvish Priest, and Successor of Heavenly Wind, Melfee. These cards are integral to the strategy. You basically need to have at least one of these 1-drops in your opening hand so you can have an explosive as start as possible. You can end up with a ton of Resonators on the field by turn 2 and 3, so you can J activate or play another one of your big finisher type cards and just smash your opponent for like 5,000 damage on turn 3 or 4. You can actually do that with this deck, which is pretty crazy. More likely turn 4, not really turn 3. But I digress. These two, pretty basic. You play them, you can rest them for will, all good stuff. Melfee does the same thing, though she does have quick cast, and she can be surprisingly good against some sort of infinite combo strategies like your Grubalesta's Secret Technique. This card is really good against it because what she does is she prevents all damage that would be dealt to target J Resonator this turn that has been errated. It actually prevents all damage that would be dealt by target J Resonator this turn, so you can play that on anything you want, like a fire aggro deck. You can, prevent all the damage their biggest guy deals, as well as, maybe block one of their smaller guys, maybe kill off their dude. Or you can just straight up, like I said, use it on one of the stones that the Arla Infinite Combo thing uses if you somehow play against that in Wanderer. So that's also pretty good. It's not a integral part to the deck, but it's just something I should point out because, it does come up from time to time, and yeah, you mostly just want it for the will production. Anyway, all really, really good cards for this deck. Alright, next up we have some of the most important cards in the deck. These are what I like to think of as the Elf Synergy cards. All 3 of these cards are actually really, really good. Some of them better than others, namely the 2 outer ones. The middle one isn't super great, but they all mention elves specifically, which is why I am running only elves in this deck to maximize these cards and our ruler. So let's go over them first. We'll start with Christie here. This is Christie, the Warden of Sanctuary, and she is probably the best card in the deck. She is so good. I mean, other than the card that we're going to use to finish out the game, which is one of the only chants in the deck, this is one of the best cards in the deck. And I'll just tell you why. She costs 2 wind. She's a 400/400. That's not good, but not horrible either. And other elves you control cannot be targeted by spells or abilities your opponent controls. And you can rest 5 recovered elves you control and gain 500 life and draw 2 cards. That makes it so you don't easily run out of gas. And you can make use of those tokens, those 100/100 tokens generated by your ruler. And since this is an ability from Christie, you can rest the tokens on the turn they come into play because they're not attacking or using their own abilities. You're using this ability to rest them, which is awesome. you can do a lot of big plays, set up for your win, all that stuff. Also, if you have 2 Christies out in the field at a time, all of your elves cannot be targeted because it just says all other elves. But if you have 2, if you have 2 of them, they each cover each other. So that's really, really good. Next up, we have Melfee, the Successor of Heavenly Wind. Once again, she is a 400/400. You can hardly see it, but she's a 400/400 for 1 will and 1 of any color. And what she does is you can rest 2 recovered elves you control and produce 1 will of any color? Yeah, 1 will of any attribute. That's also very, very good for ramping out and just kind of like dumping your whole hand. And once again, you can use her ability to rest the tokens. These guys, here are some of the tokens in case you were curious what they look like. If you don't know what they look like, her ability is pretty good. Probably the weaker of all 3 of these abilities, all 3 of these cards' abilities, but still quite useful for ramping out, dumping your entire hand. And last but certainly not least here, we have Fina, the Silver Player. And I at first didn't like this card. I was like, she's a 400/400 for 3? That's horrible. And her first ability doesn't even work? Also horrible. But the second ability is just so good. I so many times just like, I wish I had a Lord type ability or an Anthem type ability. Those are both magic terms. Just means abilities that pump up your whole team, and that's what she does. And so let's go over her really quick. She costs 2 will, 1 of any. She's a 400/400. Once again, does pretty bad stats for a 3-drop. However, she has a useless continuous ability. If your ruler is Christie, the Wind Tracker, or blah blah blah, we don't care because that is not a ruler. What we do care about is she has another continuous ability that says each other elf you control gains +400 plus 400, and that is crazy good. So if you have 2 of these out, then both of them give 400/400, and that makes all your dudes get +800/800. All of the tokens are now 900/900s, and they're going to be a lot bigger than that because we have more cards to go over. Also, you can add that on top of our J rulers or our rulers +400/400 to all elf ability. Yeah, it stacks up, and you can get some huge elves, which is basically the strategy of this deck. Fill the entire board with elves and make them all huge. Alright, the next 2 cards are pretty simple. They're just straight up big beaters. The Wiseman of the Winds is a deceivingly good card. It's an 800/600 for only 2 will, 1 wind and 1 of any. And it just has a small rider. Banish this card if you don't control another elf, and that's only on the enter ability. So if you do not control another elf later, you don't have to banish her when you control no elves. It's only on the enter ability. And yeah, that's all I have to say about her. She's really, really good. 800/600 for 2 will is crazy good. It's probably one of the most efficiently statted cards at the 2-drop slot in the game right now. So yeah, really good. I would not really take her out. It's too good. And the other one, I'm only running a couple of these in the deck, is Fiethsing, the Fate Spinning Winds. And is it winds plural? Yes, the Fate Spinning Winds. She's a 600/600 for 2 will, which is pretty good. She has Quick Cast, which is also pretty good. And when she enters the field, you can search your deck for... Or no, my bad. When she enters the field, you can return another Resonator you control to its owner's hand. That's pretty good in setting up some enter abilities. We'll go over a pretty good one on the next round of cards that we talk about. But her other ability is also really, really good. She has Inheritance. It costs 1 wind and 1 of any, and you can give target J ruler or J Resonator +600/600 until end of turn. So she's kind of like a pump spell you can play from your hand, which is also very good. And then you can search your deck for a card named Fiethsing's Monocle. We're not running that in the deck. I feel it's kind of a waste of a card in this deck. Alright, so these next 2 cards are the cards that help give the deck gas, as you could say. The Torrent Elf is super good as a 500/600 for 2 will. That's pretty good stats on its own. I wish it was a 600/600, but that's neither here nor there. What it does is when this card enters your field, if you play 2 or more cards this turn, draw a card. So if you played 1 other card before you play this, and then play this, then you can draw a card, and that's super sweet. This is, your fans of elf magic strategies will recognize this type of effect because that is heavily prevalent in those decks, and this is exactly what this deck needs. I wish there were more of these type of cards that were elves for this deck. And finally, or at least for these 2 cards, we have Whispers from the Wind. And I at first didn't really think about this card, but it's really, really good for this strategy. It costs 1 wind, it has Quick Cast, and it says, reveal the top card of your deck. This turn, you may pay 1 less to play your next card if it shares a name with a revealed card, and then you draw a card. So it basically, you draw a card, and it costs 1 less to play this turn. And that's really good because it basically filters your deck. There's a whole bunch of 1-drops and 2-drops, and it just filters through your deck and gives you more advantage and makes your cards cheaper. And that's what you want to do. You want to just have these explosive draws where you just draw and play dudes and draw more dudes and play dudes. And this card is really good for that. It's deceivingly good. It's like a filter effect, but it almost costs nothing, especially if you hit a 1-drop or a card that you were going to play. Anyway, also a good trick with this is on the beginning of your turn, before you recover all of your cards, play this, reveal the card, draw it, and then recover all your stuff, and then you have even more will to play that with. And right here we have the big finisher of the deck. Sprint of the Beast Lady is crazy good. It costs 2 wind and 1 of any. And what it says, well, it's a spell chant, but it says J Resonators you control gain +600/+600 until end of turn. And you probably want to play this on turn 4 or maybe 5, probably turn 4. And when you have like a huge board, play this and just attack. Just flunge, attack with everything, and hopefully you kill your opponent. Hopefully they're like going all in and doing whatever they're doing. In Wanderer, there could be burn strategy on turn 4 is a good time. If they haven't killed you by then, they're probably all in, and you should be able to kill them, hopefully. And other decks may be a little too strong, may be able to combo you out before that. But I digress. I still think this is a very cool and fun strategy, and just attacking with these massive, like 1,200 elves, just this army of dudes, it's a lot of fun, especially if you play something like the Fina, the Piper, who buffs all your dudes 400 on like turn 3. And then playing this, all your elves get +1,000/+1,000. So yeah, they can get pretty big, and you can deal a lot of damage to your opponent even if they have blockers. And finally, I want to go over the magic stones, because we are playing a lot of basic magic stones, but there are 2 special magic stones that we use in this deck, and they are probably pretty obvious for those of you who have played Force of Will for any amount of time longer than New Frontiers. First of all, we have Little Red, the Pure Stone, and this is a very good card for monocolor decks. It's pretty good for other color decks as well, but monocolor decks is where it really shines. And why is when this card comes into play, you can choose an attribute, and then you can activate it, or you can, rest it to produce 1 will of the chosen attribute. And you can also rest it to give a resonator that shares an attribute with a chosen attribute +200/+200. So you just choose wind, and then rest it for wind, or you can give 200/200 to any dude, which is super sweet. It's basically just like a free buff. And also, if you control 2 or more of them, then they get destroyed. You have to banish them. So that's why we only run 1 of them in the deck. And then secondly, we have Fiethsing, the Holy Wind Stone. And this is another very good stone. It saw a lot of play when it first came out. It was actually one of the more expensive cards for a little while. Anyway, what it does is you can rest it to produce a wind, but you can also pay 1 wind and rest it. It says target J Resonator cannot be targeted by normal spells your opponent controls until end of turn. So this is another way. This and Christie are both really good ways of making your elves untargetable, so they can't blow up the one that you really need. Probably like Fina or maybe Christie herself. So yeah, good stuff. And all the rest are basic windstones, as you probably had guessed. They all have to have different pictures for me because I'm crazy or something. Alright guys, so that was my Wanderer Elf strategy. I hope you liked it. I think it's a really fun deck. It's a really good casual deck to play with friends. Elves are always a really good starting point into any sort of game, Force of Will or Magic or whatever. A lot of people like to play this type of deck around the kitchen table, and you know what? So do I. I don't always play with super competitive combo decks. Elves can be fun too, even if it is a little, I wouldn't call it combo-y, but it can get combo if we get the right cards. I'm really hoping for something like Creator of Behemoth in Magic, which is a big dude. When you play it, all your other dudes become bigger, and I want something really like that in Force of Will. I mean, Fina's kind of like that, but I would like something that buffs it even bigger, like something like this, that costs like 8 will or something, and it's a resonator, and it's huge. And when you play it, it makes all your other dudes huge. I think that would be really sweet for this type of deck. But I digress. If you guys like the video, then maybe leave a like, maybe even subscribe. Every little bit helps, and I appreciate it oh so much. My channel is still growing, and I honestly appreciate every single comment, like, and subscriber oh so much. Regardless of what you do, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time for some more Force of Will content. I'm going to be doing more Wanderer stuff, also more New Frontiers, also some other stuff. Yeah, I got a lot planned, so stay tuned, guys, and I'll see you later.